People, welcome to JP Boxing. We're discussing yet another hot boxing topic here today. That's all it is here, man. Talking boxing, talking shit about boxing all day, every day. If something's going on in the boxing world, I'm going to talk to you guys about it. And as always, please like and subscribe, comment, get involved yourselves, and we just talk shit about boxing all the time because that's what we love to do. Now, obviously, one of the biggest talking points in boxing, not just now, but I see the debate and the talk about it really heating up at the moment, but for the last year or so, really, is Saudi Arabia. And it's you say Saudi Arabia now, or you say boxing now, they're kind of synonymous with each other. That's a hard word to say for us. Synonymous with each other now, aren't they? When you think about it, Saudi Arabia is not just a major player in boxing now, it probably is the main player in boxing. This guy right here, whatever you call him, Turki Alalshikh, Turki Al-Sheikh, Uncle Turkey, His Excellency, whatever you want to call him, this guy is the main guy calling the shots at the top of the boxing world right now. And as I said, it's only been like the last year or so that he's really emerged onto the scene. Definitely, it was probably when he really started getting in front of the cameras himself, was towards the end of last year, when it was around the Fury and Ngannou fight, October sort of time. And then obviously December, we had the knockout chaos, and we've had the 5 versus 5. Now he's going to do it in other countries. He's doing it in America. He's doing the Joshua Dubois show on September 21st at Wembley. I'm actually going to that one. Super excited for it. And yeah, man, when you look at it on the surface, you're probably thinking when you clicked on this video, why the fuck am I even asking the question? Is Saudi Arabia and what they're doing good for boxing? When you look at it on the surface, of course it is, man. The fights we are getting are better than we've ever got before, or definitely for a very, very long time. We're getting a good schedule of it. It's not just like once a year. It's about, they're looking like they're going to do about 6 big shows a year. They're doing it in other countries and that now. We're getting fights like Bivol versus Beterbiev that we would not have seen if it wasn't for this guy. Fury versus Usyk probably wouldn't have happened. He's desperate to make Joshua versus Fury. The only reason we'll get that one is probably because he would just chuck bucket loads of money at him. So when you look at it like that, of course, it's simple. It's brilliant for us boxing fans right now. This is the most excited I've ever seen boxing fans, man. Like, I've been following the sport. I've always been into it since I was even like a young kid, because obviously my parents, my family watching it and stuff. But I've been following it avidly since I was like 14, 15 years old. I'm now 27, so that's 12, 13 years. And it's always like boxing fans, they're always complaining. They're always, it's like, the fan base is always depressed no matter what's going on. There's always shit going wrong in boxing. But it feels like since the end of last year, we're kind of like in a honeymoon, heavenly, happy period. And people, it's boxing, man, it's the world. People are still going to complain and moan about shit. But I'd say 80-90% of boxing fans are fucking happy with what's going on and the fights we're getting right now. So yeah, that's a straight tick in the good section straight away. The massive fights we're getting, as I said, listen, so again, Bivol versus Beterbiev, Fury versus Usyk, Joshua Fury, I do believe will happen. Look at the undercards as well, that's the thing. Bivol versus Beterbiev probably wouldn't have happened without this guy, but if it did happen, let's say Eddie Hearn or someone made it, you would have seen 4 or 5 pretty dead fights on the undercard because all the money's going to the main event. On the undercard of that, we've got Joe Cordina versus Shakur Stevenson, which I actually think is a very good fight. Some people complaining, as I said, it's boxing, people always complain, but I'm going to do a video on that tomorrow and tell you why that actually is a good fight. It's going to be very competitive. Obviously, Wardley versus Clark 2, which is a very good fight to have on the undercard, but it does also go into my bad section that I'm going to go on to talk about some of the bad things about Saudi Arabia in boxing at the minute. But an absolutely brilliant undercard fight. Jaya Pataya on the undercard against Jack Massey, an underrated fight. Chris Eubank Jr., Ben Whittaker, Sky Nicholson versus Raven Chapman. A lot of them, they're main event fighters on the undercard, and it was the same on the 5 versus 5, 50-50, all main event fights on the same show. We've never seen that before in boxing, so that's another massive tick. The schedule and the quantity, as I said, it's not like he's just doing one of these a year. He's doing now like 5, 6 of these a year in different countries too, as I said. On the next thing on the good list, promoters, man. Fucking hell, finally we're seeing all the promoters working together. If someone would have said to you last year, I've got like, let's say like May time, I've got a crystal ball, and by the end of the year, this is May 2023, someone says to you by the end of the year, Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, the two guys who absolutely hate and despise each other, will be good mates and they'll be working with each other on shows. Was that the end of the year? Or 5 versus 5, sorry. 5 versus 5 was earlier this year, wouldn't it? Okay, even a year later then, who cares? Someone said to you a year later, they're going to be best mates. They're going to be working together on a show. They're going to be all pally. They're going to be putting their fighters up against each other and not caring who wins or loses because everyone's winning when it's this much money. You would have been there, all right, mate, you're chatting shit. Are you drunk? Are you on Saint? Because it just seemed like it was never going to happen. And then even recently, I thought, Ben Shalom, he's shut out. I'm not really a fan of Ben Shalom anyway, but some of his fighters, I wanted to see him in the mix. And I thought, is it just an Eddie and Frank thing? But no, he's got Ben Shalom fighters. Most of the fighters on this one coming up on October the 12th are Ben Shalom boxer fighters, Sky Sports fighters. He's now working with Oscar De La Hoya. He obviously brought Crawford in, who wasn't with Eddie Hearn and stuff on the last show. So he's bringing all the promoters and all the fighters together under one banner, like UFC, like we've wanted for such a long time. So another massive tick. And then no bullshit. The guy takes no bullshit, man. He's got a bit of an ego to him. He knows he's the guy calling the shots. This is another thing that also goes on to my bad section though. Stay tuned for that, because some of these that are also good could end up bad. But yeah, no bullshit. You fuck around. You don't want to work. You don't want to do the best. You don't want to fight the best fighters. You don't want to be in the fights he wants to make. He tells you to go fuck yourself because there's plenty of other fights he can make and he doesn't need the money. Eddie Hearn has to lick people like Canelo's ass and lick AJ's ass and that because he needs them to make the money. This guy, he's got the dream job. He's like all of us, winning, I don't know, 100 billion in the lottery or some shit like that and fucking just thinking that, let me make this fight. Let me pick this one. Let me put these two guys together. And it's good that he is actually a boxing fan and knows his shit, because a lot of the fights he's made are ones that I think, damn, yeah, that's actually really good and I didn't even think about that. He's not just doing the obvious ones too. And obviously with that, he's got Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, promoters who know the game in his ear, telling him about certain fighters and certain fights to make too. So yeah, man, a hell of a lot of good, of course. And as I said, we're in the honeymoon period right now. He's turned up, he's thrown all the money, he's given us all the fights. Fans love him, fighters love him, promoters love him, because he's given us what we want. But we have to be real here. We have to look in the long term here. And there are some bads, that I believe some negatives to him being involved in boxing already short term, but also more that could come on long term too. Now bad, I'll say it's affecting boxing in other countries. Like I said earlier in the video, he has done one in America, he has done one in Britain, but one a year isn't good enough. And then you've got like Wardley versus Clark, especially the rematch here. That was an absolutely brilliant all British fight in Britain, the first fight. The rematch, if it would have got made in Britain, would have done, I don't know, you can't say a stadium, because I don't think either and ever that huge yet, and the fight was great, but I don't think you'd have a stadium full up of it. But I think they shut O2 Arena like half off, didn't they, for their first fight? That would have done full O2 Arena, even without a good undercard. How good that first fight was and how people were excited for the rematch. Fights like that should be in Britain. They shouldn't be stuck on the undercard of Bivol Beterbiev, although it adds to the card. And looking at it, you're like, oh man, that's great. But he's taken a big British fight out of Britain, one that all the fans could have gone and got involved with. Unless you're absolutely minted, you're never going to go and watch a fight in Saudi Arabia. And even then, the atmosphere isn't anywhere near as good, which brings me on to my next negative. The atmosphere over there, it isn't that crazy sort of crowd vibe that gets the fighters going. Even watching it on TV adds excitement to the event and stuff like that. And obviously we haven't got the opportunity to go and watch as many boxing shows if it's all going over to Saudi Arabia over there. So there is that to think about, and it's not just in Britain. Obviously that can be the same in America as well. If all the Americans, all the American fighters, they do it just for the money, a lot of them, let's be honest. Gervonta Davis, let's say he goes to Saudi. Shakur Stevenson's gone to Saudi now. Let's say Jaron Ennis goes to Saudi. Terence Crawford goes to Saudi. Who are the Americans going to go out and watch to fight on their own mega shows? Obviously, you've got the prospects and that, but they want to see their superstars fight in person too. So there's that. There's also that fighters can be shut out. If he's not a fan of them, he's the guy calling the shots. Like now he's fell out with Canelo. He might think now, like, fuck, I know Canelo ain't going to care because he's the king of boxing still anyway, like name and money-wise. But he's fell out with him. It would be like, fuck you, you're not getting paid, I don't want to work for you anymore. And then Canelo's just shut out. It's not really affecting Canelo as much, obviously, because he's got people are going to go to him for the opportunities anyway. He's got the star pool, the superstar pool. But let's say someone like Tim Tszyu, he's fell out with him. There was arguments in the contracts and negotiations for a fight he wanted to make with Tim Tszyu. I think it was going to be Tim Tszyu versus Virgil Ortiz Jr. He's basically said, now, I'm not working with Tim Tszyu anymore. Tim Tszyu might not have done anything wrong. He might not have just wanted to bend the knee and bow down to Turkey. And now just because this guy's like pleasing us all with the fights and that he's putting on at the minute, we're like, well, not me, because I think you've got to read into things deeper, but fans that read it on the surface will be like, oh, Tim Tszyu's been fucking around, everyone else working with him, so it's got to be Tim Tszyu's fault. And then Tim Tszyu's shut out and ain't getting any more opportunities for like the next 2-3 years, and it fucks his career up just because Turkey, the guy running it, don't like him. And it's happened with a few fighters already. It's bound to happen with more the more we move on further and he starts meeting and talking to more fighters, of course. Then I've got what happens when the money goes. Man, like now, fighters are getting overpaid probably about 5, 6, sometimes maybe even 10 times the amount of what they were getting 2 years ago for their fights. Like Wardley versus Clark here now, they're probably going to go and get paid triple. Like, who was it before? It was Adelaide and Wardley, wasn't it? Like, they got paid, I think it was the highest ever paid British title fight. I can't remember the numbers, but it was like 10 times more than what British title fights usually are. Most fighters are going to think, all right, I've been paid that now. There's no way I'm going to drop down and fight for like 10 times less in my next fight. So they wait around for the big fights. They don't fight anybody else. They just wait for the big money. What if he gets bored of boxing, disappears, and now fighters are thinking, fuck, I was just getting paid millions. Now I've got to go back to earning like 100,000. Or I just got paid 100,000. Now I've got to go back to earning 10,000. Even if he doesn't leave the sport, he might not want to see him fight again and have to go back to fighting on British shows. It's going to fuck the way fighters are getting paid up massively, and fighters will start getting greedy and asking for too much, even when they're not working with Turki Alalshikh. I also think there's questions. Obviously, Simon Jordan and TalkSport has asked this. A lot of people were asking this when he first came into the sport. What are the reasons? What's the agenda here? Like, obviously, it could just be so pure. We can't be that naive, though. I'm definitely not that naive. I know you're not watching this either in this day and age, that he's just a boxing fan. He's doing it just because he loves boxing. Obviously, it's for the Saudi Arabia to get a better image, more people to come to Saudi Arabia, make the country look better, forget about all their human rights problems, which we're not going to dive into today, but it's worth checking out and thinking about that. They're not a perfect country at all, Saudi Arabia. So just because they're putting on boxing matches we want to see can't just mean everything's sunshine and rainbows suddenly over there. There's obviously that. Does he want to have full control? Like, there's the ranking system now. Obviously, everyone knows BoxRec. When you want to check a fighter's record, we all go to BoxRec. And their ranking system is nothing to be admired, but it is an algorithm. It's fair. He wants, I think he's already started, I think it's called Fight Facts, and he wants to make his own ranking system. He's already got the WBA to leave BoxRec, and now if you look on BoxRec, there's nothing to do with WBA at all. There's no titleists under WBA there, there's no WBA champions or anything like that. The WBA just basically been evaporated and disintegrated and just completely disappeared from BoxRec's website, and now working with him on the rankings. And then it goes to favouritism. Like, what if he now thinks I don't like Canelo, so I'm going to put him at number like 8 as super middleweight or some shit like that. Or even something more subtle like Tim Tszyu. He's still a top 3 or 4 like middleweight. He don't like him. People go to check his new ranking system out. It becomes the main one. And he puts Tim Tszyu down at number 10 and puts loads of fighters who ain't as good above him. And fighters that people have, fans that are new to the sport, are just going to go along with that. So having a ranking system run by one guy is not the way to go at all. So there's that to look out for too. But all in all, I just listed a lot of bad there. But if you look at it, man, you have to just say right now it's good for boxing. And that's all you can do in this life. Look at the right now. And right now he's putting on brilliant fights. He's given us what we want. The fighters are loving him. The fans are loving him. Promoters are loving him. And it's the best schedule of boxing we've seen probably ever, man. And best undercards we've seen. Best big fights we've seen. Fights that weren't going to happen are getting made now. The money he's chucking out there. Like, if you thought Joshua was ducking Fury, or Spence was ducking someone, or the fights you like, the fighters you believe are ducking, you will find out now if they are ducking, because they can't blame money anymore. If Turkey wants to make that fight, you know he's paying them what they want and then some. So you'll find out now. If he wants to make Joshua Fury, Fury turns it down, he's ducking. Joshua turns it down, he's ducking. Because it's nothing to fucking do with money. And that's the excuse all these fighters use when they pull out of fights or don't go into negotiations of fights. They say, oh, they didn't offer me enough, man. They don't know my value. This guy is paying you way above your value. So you're seeing that too. And yeah, as I said, it's all good now, but there are things to be wary of, fans. There are things to be careful of. We can't just let this guy get away with what he wants just because he's minted and chucking money at everyone and giving us what we want right now. So yeah, there's things to look at, but all in all, we're in the honeymoon period. Let's fucking enjoy it. You got September 21st coming up. Joshua Dubois on an absolutely stacked undercard. Josh Kelly, Liam Smith. My mind's escaping. Buatsi versus Hutchinson, brilliant fight. Man, I'm fucking going to the show. I better do my research before I go there and do the video for that. But it's an absolutely stacked undercard, I remember that. And then obviously the October 12th one has just been announced, absolutely huge. He's going to do Fury Usyk 2 at the end of the year with a massive undercard too. So yeah, all good right now. All great right now. We cannot fucking complain, can we? Over to you, boxing fans. Is there anyone that want to complain? Is there anyone that don't trust Turkey, that thinks he's dodgy and wants him gone from the sport now? Or do you think it is all good? Let me know your opinion on Turkey Alalshikh, on Saudi Arabia trying to run boxing. Is it good or is it bad or is it a bit of both? Let me know. Get involved. Thank you for watching, people. And if you like these videos, please like and subscribe because I'm diving into all the topics and talking with full honesty all the time. Peace.